Now we're going to turn to Tim McGowan. Thank you so much for joining us, Tim. Can you please share a bit about yourself and why you're running for the D211 board?
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for having me. Really appreciate it. My name is Tim McGowan. I'm running for D211 school board. A little bit about myself. I'm a father first, before anything, a William Friend alumni, and I've been extremely active in my community for at least the last 6 years. So much so that I started an entertainment company because I saw that there were very little to no places where people can, as a parent, there is nowhere for me to go and go out and blow out steam. And I think it's extremely beneficial when you can get a lot of different people together in a social environment. I think it's extremely therapeutic. So moving out, building events for partnering with the partners of our community here in Palatine, aiding with the school supply drive, when they open up the pantry, creating events to bring food and attention and awareness to our pantry here, co-hosting the YMCA's Halloween party. I just had this crazy notion that I'm supposed to make this world better than when I got here. So I'm running for school board because this summer I had the chance to connect with a lot of students. And to be perfectly honest, I was a little disheartened to hear that a lot of these students kind of deal with the same things that I dealt with back in FREM years ago. And even more disheartened to hear the struggles that the teachers have inside the district. And just like Curtis alluded, representation is everything. I've already become a lightning rod for all these issues, all these uncomfortable conversations that people want to have or things people want to have addressed, but they're afraid to bring it to certain people or they're afraid to bring it to light. I'm not afraid. As a father, as a parent, and no longer walking those halls, I think it's important that we set a great example for our students. And so I'm running a platform, ACE, accountability, because too often in the district are there times where things happen and there's no set process, i.e. bully prevention. Most recently, sexual assault is something that was expanded upon the last board meeting I attended. So these are things that we need to address, that should be at the forefront of the conversation. And for whatever reason, I don't feel like that people take these things serious enough and they're not aggressive enough at handling these issues. So A is accountability, C is our community, all the outreach programs, all the things that happen outside of the school to support these students during their education. I being just like growing up as Curtis the same way, I have a perspective, I believe, to bring to the table that most people do not, that are running for school board, even former school board members. Though that inner city kid, that urban community kid you talk about, like I was that. I did finish high school from high school, but at the time I started high school, I attended the second worst high school in the city of Chicago. So I can perfectly illustrate the differences. I can perfectly illustrate how I grew to appreciate the opportunities and resources that were allotted to me at Frem High School that I didn't even know existed prior to moving to this district. So E is obviously equity. At this point, working with all these children this summer, we realize that this discrimination, this prejudice, this bias, these things are not just a Black problem. They're not just a Latino problem. They are affecting all the students. More so at this point, I think at this point, I hear more horror stories from children who aren't of color and how it completely traumatizes them and affects them at this point. And I think this Gen Z has made it very clear that I don't even want to go to school where my friend is treated differently based on how he looks. And now we're at this point where students are forcing these conversations and they're super adamant about creating solutions to these problems. And as a parent in the community, I believe that it's my responsibility to amplify these students' voices. They need to be heard and they should be heard because they're the ones dealing with these situations. And it's shining a light on, it's not the students with all these crazy issues. It's the adults. We make a mess of it. And I think the funniest thing so far is it's like the movies where the kids are always trying to warn the adults that something's about to happen or something's coming and we don't listen to them. And then something happens and we regret not listening to them. I think that we're at a critical point in our history where these children are very adamant about fixing 100-year-old issues and they won't let off, they won't stop. So I'm obligated as a parent, as a millennial to represent, because they say we don't do anything. Look at us trying, as a millennial, to get involved and to really force these uncomfortable conversations and represent parts of my community that I respect and love.
Great inspiration. Gretchen, did you have a question?
Yeah, thanks so much for being here. And I'm also a FREM grad. So I was going to ask you, as a former D211 student yourself, how do you see that as being especially helpful in the role as a board member?
I think it's extremely helpful. Like I said, just having because I didn't attend prim all 4 years. I did do a year at another school. I think I have a comparison that most students don't. I think I have an appreciation for that school to transfer from where I came from to a blue ribbon institution like Frimm High School. I think that was an immense, it was overwhelming. It was a culture shock, but I do believe that by being a product of the district, I do understand the culture. I do understand the school. I do understand the process because I've seen it, I've lived it, I've breathed it, versus someone who's never been inside the district to understand.
Great. One last question. How can the Board of Education help support all students to create the best opportunities for everyone?
And my opinion is listening and understanding. Like I said, the last board meeting, for example, the last board meeting, 11 young ladies got up and told horrific stories about sexual assault, horrific stories. And mind you, 4 out of the 5 schools in the district were represented. So it wasn't isolated to one school. It wasn't isolated to 2 schools. It was 4 different schools. And later on in that meeting, I did hear current board members say things like, well, if there's a problem in the district, it needs to be addressed. Well, these young ladies just told you there's a problem. They just literally got behind this podium and they cried to you and they asked you, please do something for us, do something about this. And then post that conversation, we're still not sure if it's an issue. So I don't necessarily understand the mindset, but as far as the board, as far as issues like that, having these tough conversations, tackling this equity and being serious about tackling these issues, I get it. There are board members who are just, conservative minded, let's put it that way, and they want to keep things kind of the way they are. And there are incredibly progressive people who want to see things change. So I think it's the district's responsibility at this point. This summer, myself and my team did come up with, you want to do 3 main things to the school to dramatically change the culture. You want to hire more teachers of color. You want to diversify your curriculum. And you want to expand on anti-racism and anti-bias training for all the staff of the district. By doing these 3 things, seriously doing these 3 things, you can dramatically change the culture of every school in the district almost instantly. And I believe it's the board's responsibility to see it as a priority.
Great. I want to thank you both so much for coming.